Okay, we're going to do some quadratic word problems this week. So one of the items that you have to look at are these task cards that I've put online for you. I'm going to go through task 1 and task 2 with you. We're going to skip task 3 altogether. If we were in person, we would do that one. That one's slightly different, not impossible, but just a little different setup that I didn't want to do over the internet with y'all. And then you are going to choose a couple of problems to do. All the details are explained for you on the website. So anyway, let's get started with task number 1. So let's read through it together. Task number 1, your nephew is standing on his deck, which is 4 feet off the ground. He tosses his toy up into the air at an initial velocity of 7 feet per second. The equation h equals -2t squared plus 7t plus 4 models the toy's height h in feet from the ground at t seconds after he threw it. Okay, and there's 3 different questions that we're going to answer in this one task problem. So here's a little bit of a visual for you. Here's the deck that the nephew is standing on, right? He's 4 feet off the ground, as it tells us in the problem. He tosses that toy up into the air. That gravity is acting on that toy, right? Well, he throws it up into the air. It's going to reach some sort of max height, and then it's going to fall back down to the ground. Okay? So you can kind of see how that's forming a little parabola for you there. Okay? So on my loose leaf here, I've got task number 1. I drew a little 1 quadrant coordinate plane here. I've got the x-axis, I have the y-axis. The x-axis is going to represent time in seconds. Here's a time of 0. The y-axis is going to represent height in feet, okay? I'm going to say that this little mark right here is 4 feet off the ground, okay? I know that's an important part right there because that's where the toy was thrown from. It says the nephew was 4 feet off the ground, okay? So that's the initial height. Hey, that sounds like the y-intercept to me. And then look at what the toy is doing. It's going, it's gonna go up, it's gonna reach a max height, and then it's gonna come down and it's gonna hit the ground somewhere, right? So there's several points that we're really interested in. 1, where does that toy start from? 2, what's the max height, right? What's the max height and when does it reach the max height, okay? That's, hey, by the way, that's the what? Vertex of the function, okay? And then I want to know, when does that toy hit the ground, right? When does the toy hit the ground? That's one of the zeros of the function, all right? So there's several things that we're interested in right there. All right, so let's start going through this, this task. So A, how high is the toy after 1 second? How high is the toy after 1 second, okay? So we want to know when t equals 1, when time is 1, how high is it off the ground? Okay, folks, super easy. All we're going to do is take a time value of 1 and we're going to plug it into our function here. We're going to do h of 1. Okay, so this is part A. Part A, we're doing h of 1. All right, so I'm going to take, let me write down the original quadratic up here just so we can have it as a reference. Sorry if you can hear Cora screaming in the background, but you know, hey, life working at home. Okay, so h of 1, we've got -2 times 1 squared plus 7 times 1 plus 4. And by the way, she is being watched by an adult. Okay, okay. Now, let's work it out using order of operations. So 1 squared is 1. 1 times -2 is -2. 7 times 1, 7, and then plus 4. Add them together, folks. -2 plus 7 is 5. 5 plus 4 is 9. Okay, so this is h of 1. So that means 9 what? 9 feet. After 1 second, that toy is 9 feet off the ground. So I'm actually going to make that an ordered pair. 1 second, it's 9 feet off the ground. Okay, once we have all of these parts A, B, and C answered, I'm going to go back. I'm going to put them in our little graph right here, okay? All right, let's go to B. Let's go to B. B says, what is the toy's maximum height? What is the toy's max height? Max height, y'all, that's a vertex question. That's a vertex question. And let's think about the vertex, right? X comma Y. What do the X's represent? Time, right? What do the Y's represent? Height. So are we looking for the X value of the vertex or the Y value of the vertex? It says max height. We want the Y value, okay? Now we are gonna have to find the X value of the vertex before we can get the Y value, okay? That's where we need that little equation, negative B over 2A. So to get the X value of the vertex, remember we want the vertex, X comma Y, I need to do negative B over 2A, all right? Well, what is B? B is the coefficient of T, so 7. So negative 7 divided by 2 times, what is A? A is negative 2. That's the coefficient of T squared. So times negative 2. So that gives us negative 7 divided by negative 4. Okay? Well, negative divided by a negative is a positive, and this is 7/4. Okay? Look, you can leave it as 7/4. If you want to change it into a decimal, that's fine as well. 7 divided by 4 is 1.75. So that means at a time of 1.75 seconds, that's when the toy is going to reach its maximum height, 1.75 seconds. Now look, we already figured out at 1 second that toy was 9 feet off the ground, right? So this is, I know that at 1.75 seconds, my toy is going to be at its max height. So is 9 the max height? No, it's going to be something higher than 9. So we should be getting a number bigger than 9 when we plug in for the vertex here, okay? So how do we get the vertex? Well, now we're going to do h of 1.75. H of 1.75. I would highly suggest that you use a calculator for this just to help speed things along. I'm definitely going to use a calculator. I'm actually using the calculator on my phone, which makes it pretty convenient. I really wish I would have taken one home from school, but you know, that's fine. I'll just use the one on my phone here. Okay, so I'm going to start by squaring 1.75. And by the way, I can't remember who I told this to what, folks, but if you have an iPhone, you can take that iPhone, turn that calculator to the side, do it horizontally like this, and you have a scientific calculator. So here's x squared. So there we go. So that was 1.75 squared, okay? So that gives me 3.0625. Then I need to multiply that by negative 2. So I'm going to go ahead and plug that in. So I'm going to do times negative 2, and I get negative 6.125. Okay, so let me write that down. Negative 6.125 plus, now I need to multiply 7 times 1.75. Let me clear this out. So 7 times 1.75, that gives me 12.25, okay, 12.25. So plus 12.25 and then plus 4, okay? All right, let me do a little bit more adding and subtracting here. So negative 6.125, if you have this little button right here that says like plus slash minus, that'll change it to a negative sign for you, plus 12.25 plus 4 equals 10.125. Okay, that's our height. That's our maximum height, 10.125 feet. This is our max height of the vertex right there. Okay, so at a time of 1.75 seconds, our toy reaches its max, oops, I should have put that here, its max height of 10.125 feet. Okay, so there's my vertex, 10.125 feet. Okay, all right, so we did part B. That was the answer for part B. Part C, how long was the toy in the air? How long was the toy in the air? So what does that want to know? It wants to know, when is that toy? Another way of asking that is, when does the toy hit the ground? How long was it in the air, or when does the toy hit the ground? What are we trying to find here? x-intercept. That's what we want. We want the x-intercept. Well, how do you find an x-intercept or a zero of the function? You've got four options. One, factor. Two, square root method. Three, complete the square. Four, quadratic formula. Okay, those are your options. Okay, y'all, I'm gonna do the quadratic formula. Okay, so I'm gonna do quadratic formula. So I wanna know how long was it in the air? Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. All right, on the side over here, I'm gonna write down a, b, and c. A, B, and C from our quadratic. Let me scroll up here. Fancy scrolling, right? So here's A. A is the coefficient of t squared, so -2. B is 7, and C is 4. Okay? Let's plug these into our function. So negative B, so -7 plus or minus the square root of 7 squared minus 4 times -2 times 4 divided by 2 times -2. All right. You got some multiplying and adding and subtracting to do here. So -7 plus or minus the square root of 49. Let's see, -4 times -2 is +8. And 8 times 4 is 32. So plus 32 divided by 2 times -2 is -4. 49 plus 32. So you're just going to add those two together. It's going to give us 81. Ooh, that worked out nicely, right? We like that because 81 is I can hear you all saying it, perfect square. The perfect square. All right, so that's going to give us -7 plus or minus the square root of 81 is 9 divided by -4. So that's going to give us, let me split it into two. Okay, two answers. -7 plus 9 divided by -4 and -7 minus 9 divided by -4. Okay, so let's solve here. We've got -7 plus 9 is 2. And 2 divided by -4. So 2 divided by -4, well, that's -1/2. -1/2, remember these are x values and the x's represent time. So at -1/2 second, -1/2 second, we're going to talk about what that means in just a minute. -7 minus 9 is -16. Divided by -4. Negative divided by a negative is a positive. 16 divided by 4 is 4. So this one is 4 seconds. Okay, so which answer is the one that we go with, right? I've got -1/2 second and I've got +4 seconds. -1/2 second means 1/2 second before your nephew threw the toy. Are we interested in time that's negative? No, we're not. We're interested in time that's a positive value. This one you're going to ignore because it doesn't make sense in the context of this problem. So you're going to ignore this 0 right here. We're going to go with this one, 4 seconds. How long was that toy in the air? It was in the air for 4 seconds. Okay, 4 seconds and then it hits the ground. So I told you these three, oh, by the way, if I drew this if I put this one as an ordered pair, it would be 0, 4, right? So we actually came up with 3 different ordered pairs here for A, B, and C. That first one, it wanted to know how high was the toy after 1 second. So I know 1 second is about right in here. Right here, we're gonna have, so I'm gonna put 1 right here. At 1 second, that toy was what, about 9 feet off the ground? The answer for part B, at 1.75 seconds, that toy is at its max height, a max height of about, what was it, 10.125 feet off the ground, okay? And then when does the toy hit the ground, right? So when is the height 0 again? Well, we know that that was after 4 seconds. Look at that, man, quadratics. Whew. All right, y'all, the next video is gonna go over task number 2.